Right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Action activate, and I'll catch you on the swoosh.
It's me, Gazbot, for Action Activate, and if I'm Gazbot with Action Activate, then with me, as always, is...
It is the Big Dog. We are here for what we didn't know we would be here for, a part 3 of talking about these Playmates Mighty Morphin Power Ranger toys, Gaz.
Yeah, I didn't expect it, but at Toy Fair, they announced more. I'm going to pull this up. This is the link. I saw some stuff, but this is the link you shared with me. This is from Pixel Dan, who is a great toy reviewer. He does a lot of Turtles, Masters of the Universe. Power Rangers isn't his specialty, but he dips in a little bit of everything. Yeah. And I assume the reason you sent this to me is because it's a good just walkthrough of their booth. The Playmates.
Yes. What I would say is play it, but mute it, and we'll kind of talk over it, pause if we need to.
I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit because I don't want to completely pilfer his video. You should go watch his
video. Yeah, go watch his as well.
They also talk about stuff, what you're looking at, although any Ranger fans kind of already know what we're looking at. But
so first thing here, we're seeing the flip heads in action. Now, this is one. They have an action feature where you squeeze the legs and it'll do the flip. That is a cool little gimmick. Of all of the things they revealed, I'm in a toss-up between this or the non-flip head Rangers being my least anticipated thing. What were your thoughts?
Well, two things I want to bring up about this, regardless of how I feel about them. I'll say a positive thing, because I generally am not that positive about these. The old flip heads, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd flip it, it would flip, and then you had to reset it.
Yes.
Right? This one looks like it goes flip, 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 flip by itself, the way the guy was showing it. That is cool. That is a good upgrade. For playability as a kid and just for like goof around with on your desk. That's one. Two, there was some confusion where there was the silhouettes and then they released the flip heads and I'm like, oh, well, this was the silhouettes. And then people were telling us, no, that's two different ones. It was just one, right?
No, there's two different sets of figures.
So I'm on, well, no, I know there's another set of figures. Well, okay, we'll get to that, I guess.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So I'm not, the only thing positive I have to say about this is the cool flip around feature is cool. And I guess the fact that Tommy's shield stays on as opposed to having
that is an interesting thing. The thing that I got out of this whole thing before we go all the way through is it seems like somebody with a time machine went back to 1993 and went, hey, I got this really good idea, and then made like a polished, improved version of all the toys from 30 years ago, and then was like, and now I'm releasing them as my own idea. And I don't mean that as a negative. I mean that as this is the 93 Power Rangers toys, but newer and different.
I mean, even as we go through, the selection of the toy line feels just like the initial offerings from the toy line. I will say it as a negative because we've had some version of most of these toys several times, including recently. And I specifically agreed with what you said because it reminded me of the Masters of the Universe Origins, where it looks like the toys from the 80s, but with better articulation and stuff, which isn't a horrible thing. But that line isn't doing amazing. And those characters haven't been released like 15 million times as much as this has. And I'm not defending that line as being amazing either, but at least, I don't know. I really wanted to see them have at least one other team or something other than Mighty Morphin being represented to give me a little hope.
Yeah, I will say this isn't all going to be negative, by the way. I know we're only a couple minutes in, but I do want to preface that because we were mostly negative in the other two.
This might be a rare case also. I would say 9 times out of 10, you're more negative than me. Would you agree?
Depends on what we're talking about, but I don't.
But even if we agree that this is bad or good or whatever, I think you tend to...
I can sometimes be a harsher critic. Is that what you're saying?
Let's put it that way. Yes, but I feel this time I'm going to be the harsher critic.
Probably. The previous videos, and again, I want to thank everybody in the comments who talked because I appreciate it, and we talked back most of the time. is some people are like, well, these are for kids. I know we both have kids. I'm framing this as I want this for my kid, not necessarily I want it for me. Some stuff I want for me, 90% of anything I say, that's cool, I'm thinking of for a child. So just keeping that in mind.
Absolutely agreed. And I think with all hobbies, whether it's Transformers, Power Rangers, comic books, you need to get kids involved if you want to keep it going. And we are not supposed to be the target audience. I agree with all of that. But my argument was like, what kids are into these?
Yeah.
Like, because there's no media. Well, we'll get to that. But yeah.
The lack of media, I agree, where for this, you kind of need to lean more toward us. And some of the things they did, I actually was surprised and am cool with. Like, for example, the villains. Right here. Wonderful. We haven't seen a Squat in who knows how long.
Yeah, Squat and Babu have not gotten a new figure, not including the reactions, which aren't aimed at kids and don't really scale with other things. The Rita, which isn't perfect, is still way better than, not including adult collectibles. It's the best Rita we've ever got.
Yes, in terms of toys, go for it.
Well, I'll say, to be positive, I'm much more excited about the villains. I'm probably not going to be buying them for myself. Maybe I'll get the Babu, just because I know Babu. But I'm excited because they scale with these Rangers. But again, thinking about the adult collectibles, people that have had those flip heads since they were a kid and never had really a nice set of villains to go with. There was a few that kind of matched here and there, but like if I was a 90s kid that had that collection forever, I would get every single one of these.
Yeah, this I was thinking similar vein, but a little bit newer is I still have all of my Super Mega Force figures. And some of my Dino Charge figures. And it's, cool that if these scale the same, I'd put these with those because, again, it was a kid's toy line that I happen to have, but this is something new that we didn't get and goes well with those. So it kind of checks both boxes in that regard. And I find it hysterical. And I'm just noticing this now, that the King Sphinx, no matter which toy company it is, other than Super 7, shout out Super 7, can't paint him right.
Yeah. But they still have better paint apps.
These have better paint apps than the Hasbro Lightning Collection one. I agree.
Yeah. And I believe the price point for the flip heads, I believe the price point for these are 10, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it 10 for flip heads too? Actually, now I'm doubting myself.
I think so. I remember. So this is where I get confused because we see the flip heads and we see other Rangers, and I know one of the sets is $10 each.
Right.
I just don't remember.
If these are $10 each, then that's fine for the price point. And honestly, all of my criticisms that, like, again, my general feeling on this whole thing is boo, like overall. But I want to be clear. I don't think they're terrible toys. They seem to be decent toys for the price point. It's more that I don't know who they're for. And yes, they're for kids, but really, what kids? Like we've had kid versions 5 times in the last couple of years. Like what kids want these that don't have them? What parents, and yes, there's a small percentage like you of parents that want to get their kids into Power Rangers that somehow haven't got them yet, but that's such a niche, tiny market. This can't all be for that. Yeah,
because again, some of the stuff, to your point, like the villains, you want to put that with the vintage stuff? Cool, you didn't have that option. These other ones may or may not. So if you're going for the adult collector, you got to change how it's going. If you're going for kids, kind of have to change. This was interesting.
I didn't understand it.
I did and I didn't. So these are like the first bikes that they came out with.
So not the Shark Cycles?
No, these are like early Mighty Morphin toys.
Oh, yeah. I can see. But they didn't, okay. But what is the jump feature? What is that?
It is a cool action feature they like that you can have them spring out and kick things.
Okay, so that's not a reference to anything.
No.
Not the old toys, not the show, nothing.
Just not as far as I know. So for this, the cycles are cool. It was a little nostalgia, whatever. And then as a kids only thing, like this was more in the Disney seasons where they had toys where it was like, this was never in the show. This is just for the toy. Right. Like, okay.
It doesn't bother me as a kid's toy.
Yeah.
But
I don't hate it. I don't love it.
I'll tell you what, here's what I would like if we're thinking of it just as toys, forgetting about accuracy, collectability. Have one have this. Have another one have missiles. Have another one have have each one have a different feature because they all have individualized parts. Like there's some shared parts, but have each one have something different. Why not?
Or better yet, like if you want to go to the throwback of these cycles, that's cool for, let's say, us as the demo. Then as a kid's toy, make them combine or something. So I need to buy all 3. Like there's no real thing because those kind of look like those other figures I don't really want. They have this harnessed gimmick that is hit or miss depending on who you ask.
Thing that it's an exclusive articulated figure, but I think he's using that term loosely because I think you're right that they're from the other line and it's included, not exclusive.
Well, also, this guy that talked,
he got a lot of stuff wrong.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm trying to choose my words wisely, so give me a moment. I work in a corporate environment, and I see a lot of presentations, both internal and external. Yeah. And one thing that bothers me is if you don't know about something, there's a certain way of talking about it where you're not being wrong, but you're also not overextending to show that you don't know what you're talking about. And I feel like he multiple times crossed that line of like, yeah, and you use the bleed blaster. He didn't say that, but like something like that where you're like, that's not what it's called.
I think
like
he called the Zords Dragon Zords. He's like, you get all the Dragon Zords together.
Oh yeah, something like that. And you're like, that's not what it is.
And again, not attacking this guy. I got the vibe that he read a brief. Like, here's what you need to know. He studied. It's not like he didn't know what he was talking about, but he's not a fan. He's not someone who works on this line. He's just there to promote it. And he did an okay job. Yeah. And to anybody that wasn't a fan, they'd be like, oh, okay, that's mostly correct. But I did think how Pixel Dan didn't once correct it. And I'm like, good for you, Pixel Dan, because I know you have noticed these mistakes he's making.
Yeah. And that was my whole thing is like either talk less or know more.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the two. It actually reminds me of I don't watch the news really, but occasionally when something happens near you or to your neighbor or something, it's like, oh, let's watch that segment. And then you see it and you're like, they got a lot of stuff wrong. And then it just kind of like glass shatter effect. You're like, oh, got it.
I don't know if I ever told, I'm going to go on a big tangent, big tangent to your point. Years ago, I was in the newspaper. Did I tell you about this ever?
I don't know if you did.
I used to have a comic strip in a local college newspaper.
I knew this.
Okay. And at some point, I got interviewed about that. And there was a whole story behind that I'm not going to get into. But they came to my house. They asked me some questions. They took a picture. And then it came out and it had some things wrong. And it was like they were only there for like a half hour or so. You know, like they only asked me so many questions. But I remember specifically one of the questions was like about who my favorite artist was or whatever. And I think they said Tim Bradstreet, who was not my favorite artist and has never been my favorite artist. I think that might have been one of like when they were saying, just name a couple artists you like. And that might have been one I named at the time, or maybe I had a book of his.
Because it was all you thought of. You're like,
Yeah, but it wasn't. It's certainly, he's never been one of my favorite artists. Nothing against him, but just not a personal hero or anything. And then there was a few other, they'd asked like what I did for fun. And I said a bunch of stuff I did. And one of the things they listed was like having super soaker fights with my friends, which is not something I said, but it's possible I had a water gun in my room, maybe, you know, but it was just like that was the first one is like, I might have said that incorrectly or they misunderstood me. The super soaker fight. Nope. And they had a few other things wrong. Nothing like where it was like a hit job on me, but just again, like just a little bit wrong.
Yeah.
It was in a local paper. They got picked up by a statewide paper. And in the statewide paper, they reprinted the whole thing, but somehow got more things wrong. Like where it said I lived in a different state and I had a different hometown and my age was wrong. And it was like, you couldn't even copy and paste correctly. Yeah. Like, and so that definitely let me know, like, you know, obviously there's bias in journalism and obviously there are people that do know, but this was someone who was doing a fluff piece on me and it was generally positive. They had no agenda other than here's a local artist and somehow got things wrong. And then someone else said, what a nice piece. I'll run that too. And got it wrong a second time.
More wrong.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my shattering of like, yeah, the news is not going to always be.
All that to be said, there's many things we don't know. And boy, do we point it out when we don't.
So this is, you're right. This was the other line that I thought 2 or 1 and comments corrected us. Thank you. And Big Dog corrected us. So this is, I think they said 5.5 inches, right?
Mm-hmm. I think, I don't know the scale.
I think he said 5.5 inches. It definitely wasn't 6 because I was listening to see like, well, could these be fudged into a Lightning Collection? I was trying to think of how big the last lines before Lightning Collection were. Were they 5? They were 5. So these won't match those. That's unfortunate.
That's my whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Tell me what you
McFarlane going 7 inches so that his can't mix with the old stuff. Like, why?
And to your point, for McFarlane, that was recently announced at Toy Fair that Mattel is going to take over the DC license starting next year, which to guys like you and me, I mean, I have more than you do, but it's like, well, I guess I'll keep a handful because everything else doesn't scale, and the stuff Mattel did before is probably going to scale with the stuff Mattel did now. So you kind of made yourself this weird thing that can easily be Toy Story
out.
of I don't want to play with you anymore. Like,
yeah, I'm glad that almost every figure I got from him, and I didn't get a lot. You went more in. I got on clearance. I think I only paid full price for like 3 of them, and they were ones that I don't regret because there's like Christopher Reeve Superman and Adam West Batman, ones that like just weird ones that don't have to fit.
Yeah. But all that is to say, for this, these aren't the worst Mighty Morphin basic figures we've ever seen. The scale's weird, though, because my point with the monsters, you can fudge monsters. The scale's always kind of nebulous. But with this, if I put this next to a figure from Super Mega Force and it's significantly bigger, but it's significantly smaller than the Lightning Collection, it has no place.
It's also odd because I feel like they're more muscular than the show is. But not as muscular as the vintage, I say vintage, but anything, they're like sort of in between. We're like, again, who are they appealing to? People that want them to look like the show, or people that like superheroes? They're not terrible, but they're their own new this is who I think this is for. Random kids that'll just buy whatever. The few parents that want to get something for their kids that somehow didn't, in Mighty Morphin specifically. But who I think the person who I think is actually going to be excited for this is the Mighty Morphin diehard fan completionist. It's like, ooh, another different set of Mighty Morphin to put in my collection. And no shade on those people. Have fun. I'm glad these are here for you. But that's a minority. That's not a majority. So again, like all the scenarios I can think of people who want these, the big problem with Power Rangers is like they're not making enough money and people keep shuffling it around. And like I don't see how this is going to make Playmates money. I don't see how this is going to be the thing where they're like, now, and here's why I'm saying that too, isn't because I want this to fail. I want it to succeed, and I want them to go bigger and bring in other seasons and do other things. And if this doesn't succeed, they won't. I mean, maybe they already have a year or two planned out, and they'll do that and then end. So part of the reason I'm so critical is because I don't think this is a winning combination to make this thing go further, which is what I want. Which is why some people are like, would you rather have nothing? And sometimes I would. I'd rather they wait a few years, let anticipation build up, come up with a new angle. So I'm being very critical, but it's out of love.
All that is to say, this is kind of that split point where I think everything we've said right now, I feel very similarly on. And then after this, my thoughts actually shift more in a positive way.
Okay, well, let's move on from this. The next thing we see is this Ultimate Megazord.
Now, this is a rip and replace of the one from the 90s.
Okay. It has sound. Did the one from the 90s have sound?
There was a non-transforming Megazord where the arms could come off and the faces of the feet could come off from the 90s. That had a sword and a shield, and it had a wired-in remote control that you could like move a little bit, and it had lights and I believe sound.
Think this is remote control. That wire.
No, that's the mic. I'm saying though that the mic actually made me like nostalgia blast back to I forgot that was a thing until right now.
Right. Yeah. So it's very, very similar to something that existed in the past.
Literally, they went, show us the original toys, we're making a new version of it, and that was it.
I mean, this isn't for me, but again, depending on price point, what I try to think of as a kid that doesn't know about Power Rangers or maybe vaguely has heard of them would go, oh, cool, a cool looking robot with light up eyes that talks. If that's like $20, I can see them getting. If it's like $50, $60, I don't think so.
And this is one I'll give them credit. We've seen a lot of Target kind of esque retail Mighty Morphin stuff to various degrees. They haven't done a non-transforming one in a while. So as a toy perspective, I actually commend them on it because these Zords, although I have my opinions on them good and bad, this is something I'm like, at least you have a full figure that you can sell somebody. And it's like, this you can play with, this you can pose up, this you don't have to collect 9 things. It's a one and done. And it has lights.
And sound.
Yeah, and sound.
And then, so this is the transforming Zord. And I was wrong. They are not bundling them together.
Nope.
Each Zord is separate. I think $18. What's interesting, though, is Pixel Dan was even saying like, and so some of these are going to be more than others. And the representative said, no, they will all be the same price as per retailer request, I guess, to make things simple.
Yep.
And my thought immediately was like, the pterodactyl is like garbage for $18. And they didn't say this, so I'm making an assumption. See the little mini versions of the figures there? I'm guessing those come with the pterodactyl.
And the little feet and stuff. Yeah. These surprised me seeing them in person. Or not in person, but you know what I mean. Like, these looked better than the last images we saw.
Agreed, but they don't impress me. Not that they're bad, but it's just like stuff we've seen before, like it just looks like you said, it looks like the original one that's been re-released like 3 times with minor changes, but tweaked a little bit to be a little better.
Yes.
And so again, does that make it terrible? No, I think it's overpriced. I think it's definitely overpriced.
Yeah.
But as a toy, it's fine. But who doesn't have some version of this at this point that wants to spend that money on it?
I appreciate that this is bigger than the last basic release we got.
16 inches, I think they said.
Yeah,
More than 12.
It's pretty big. So I appreciate it from that perspective. I also
15,
appreciate that even though this is a basic 4Kids Megazord, the shield looks 1,000 times better than the Ascension Project one. Sorry, the pterodactyl shield. That's what I mean.
Oh, okay. I also looked back, but I don't have the Ascension Project one. I have the Soul Choco.
Yeah, which is the best, and I have it too.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not excited about like the villains still are the thing I'm the most excited for. Moving on, they have not helmets but masks, but like
I love this.
Yeah. I think these are fine, and we see this a lot. I see every time I go to the toy, I see Spider-Man and whoever else in this exact form factor. And these are all pretty accurate. Yeah, I'm into this.
I love that we see the full team. I can't tell you another time, unless it was a team of like 3 Rangers, that we've seen in the initial wave, all of them, if at all. It's usually red, it's usually 6th, and maybe it's pink if you're lucky, but usually not because they say that girl toys don't sell.
Yeah, good point. Just seeing them all together. And also, as an adult collector, I'm not going to do this, but I can see people getting these and they're kind of flat, like hanging them on a wall. Like, as a decoration would be kind of cool.
These are great. These, I think, appeal to anybody.
Yeah, yeah. And I could see these selling to kids, again, that maybe don't never watch Mighty Morphin, but watched another season or kind of only vaguely know what they are, but it's just like a cool superhero helmet. I could see these doing okay.
I will say I can attest to that. I have a buddy with a few kids that are a little bit older than mine, than my kid, and I had some old random like Dino Charge or like there's another season, maybe Ninja Steel. I don't remember, but they were all Red Rangers. It was only Red Rangers, and I had these masks and. When they would come over, you know, I had all the cool toys and stuff, and I was like, here, you guys can have them. And I would get texts all the time from my buddy, like, they still keep wearing that goofy mask you gave them. Thanks. I didn't think they'd wear it so long, but they do. And that was just random throwaway. This is actually cool.
Yeah.
These look cool.
I agree. I think the challenge here is getting a parent to pay for it if the parent doesn't care about Power Rangers.
I think
if the kid's in the store and asks for it, that's one thing. But like if it's a gift giver, like that's in the store, they're going to go, oh, well, Spider-Man's popular right now or Batman's popular right now. They're not going to go, let me get a Power Ranger. Like they wouldn't necessarily think.
Power Rangers are universal enough now that people know it. At least Mighty Morphin.
They would know what it was, but like some aunt or grandma who isn't the parent of the kid looking to buy something is going to get Sonic or something that's popular.
I disagree. I think this would be over Sonic
really?
or like Mario or something. Yep.
I couldn't imagine anyone in any part of my family buying my kid a Power Rangers helmet and let the mask.
Your kid is very specific because you have all of these other interests anyway. That is a bad example.
Why is that a bad example?
Because I could see, to your point, that your family giving your kid something that isn't Power Rangers because they A, would assume you already have it, and B, because of your kid's interests, would go a different route. Well, this, I think, is a good generic thing, boy or girl.
Just for clarity, my kid's a little bit over 5, and they have things. Yeah, they have things they like they like Super Kitties and Spider-Man and Young Jet. Like they have Monster High, like the things they like. How you think other kids don't have that? Like
I'm not saying they don't. I'm saying this has more appeal than you're giving it credit for.
Okay, maybe so. Well, again, I think kids would like it. I just don't know if parents would randomly get it.
I could see all of the above, and it's easy for like, depending on how big these are. I could see a random, around Halloween time, people do a lazy costume, throw this on. Like it's got a lot more appeal.
I think it should be $10.
Yeah, no more than $10.
Okay, I don't think they said the price. Here's the Morpher, which
amazing.
Actually, the Morpher is $18 too, right? They said that last time.
This is probably the showstopper for me of everything they showed.
For the price, it's great. For the price, it's great. It's got the light and sound. It's got the coins.
So pause. You and I
you and I
never bought the Hasbro one.
Correct.
If these were side by side on the shelf,
hold on. To be clear, we do have a Hasbro one,
but it's different.
The Jason Legacy one. I'm looking for it. I forget where I put it.
I know, but that's different because that was premium.
Right, but it was okay. Well, go ahead, finish your point.
This, I think, if it was side by side with the Hasbro one, you and I would pick this one.
Why? Because of the price.
Because the problem with the Hasbro one is it was built like a toy, but it was selling against a show prop collector piece. This is clearly a toy that looks way better than a toy should.
Yes, I agree with that. And going back to what we were just saying, I'm going to kind of contradict myself a little bit. For the things of this that I'm most likely to get my kid, if anything, are the role-playing things. I could see getting this morpher for her, maybe a mask if she wants it. And I think she would be more interested in these than the figures because she kind of knows who these characters are, but has never watched the show or anything like that. So she likes being characters for $18. This is an amazing thing to play with. She would love it. The mask she may or may not want, but this is probably the thing that. But I wouldn't.
But this could lead to a mask.
Sure. But this is not something I would get for myself. I would get it if I didn't have a really good morpher already. But I've got like 3 or 4 like adult collectible Mighty Morphin era morphers. I don't need another one.
Let's say, you zero kid bias for this scenario for you.
Okay.
You go to Target one day.
Yes.
These are on the shelf. Yes. There's a random Target sale. It's 25% off. Would you get it? I asked
you if you want it. I text you and you'd say, hey, do you want one of these for 25% off?
And I would say yes, but okay. That's beside the point.
I think these are cool. I would be excited for the sale, but if I didn't have a kid, I wouldn't get it. And here's the reason. If I had no morpher, I would get it at full price.
Yes.
I have multiple morphers of I have the vanilla one, I have the White Ranger one, I have the Green Ranger one, and I have the Dimensions of Danger custom one. So I have 4 at least. I'm not saying that to brag. I got these over the course of several years. One was a gift, but I don't need another representation of Mighty Morphin. Now, if the other thing is, and we talk about this space, I'm a big collector, as are you. I don't know where I would put it. It would just go if I had a Mighty Morphin dedicated collection, that's all I collected, or if I had a more focused thing or had more space, then yeah, maybe I'd get this as another thing to put on the shelf. But as it is, when I have this many morphers and it's like an embarrassment of riches, but like I would have to move or get rid of something to make room for this.
And if you didn't have your custom Dimensions and Danger morpher, would you theoretically use this as a base for a custom?
No, because I don't do customizations. I would.
Well, no, if somebody had an aftermarket kit of like, you buy these stickers and it's $30.
No.
Interesting.
I think it's great. I think it's a great kid's toy. I think it's great if somebody doesn't have a Mighty Morphin morpher, but I'm not that person. I would buy this for my kid maybe, but otherwise not at all.
I'm going to commit to this channel. You're going to get a review from me, not necessarily Gaz.
Fair. That's fair. And if I get one for my kid, I'm not going to put her on camera, but I will give you a review of what she thinks of it.
Sounds good.
And then the Blade Blaster is interesting.
I was pleasantly surprised by this Blade Blaster.
I liked the action, the way it like shot out in and out. I thought that was pretty cool.
I agree.
I didn't like how it was red, but I guess that's so it could light up, so it's a more of a fun toy.
Yeah,
less accurate, but again, for a toy, pretty accurate. You could use that as a cosplay piece as a cheap, fairly accurate thing.
So, what I will say, and I just had this thought, and people are probably screaming like, "Yeah, dummy!" All of these would have been so awesome right around the time of Once and Always.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Moving on.
Dragon Dagger, that looks just like the original.
Yeah, and to your point, this is all. It really looks like they said, "What worked in 1993? Let's do that, but better."
Yeah,
and I think that if that's their goal, and I think they succeeded. I'm not talking about sales. I'm not talking about anything like that, but just in terms of what they wanted to do and what they've done, they succeeded.
Yeah, I think this looks good. I'm not necessarily committing to getting it. I probably won't, if I'm being honest. The morpher I will get. The Blade Blaster's a hard maybe, but probably not. But like these look cool.
This comes with the green coin, the dragon coin, which does work in the Morpher 2, they confirm.
Yeah, that part I think is a cool include. So there's definitely thought put in. I could definitely see some things getting muddied behind the scenes of like people creating some of this being like, here's what we should do, and then them going, nope, you got to do this. But all of this stuff that we've just talked about, the last like 4 things, I think are awesome. Definitely, A's in my book for.
And they're good also for someone who wants the vintage pieces, but not at the price they're at or in better condition. Like, and again, I just don't know how big that market is.
Or cosplays. Like these are both fun toys. They appeal to people who want the vintage ones that don't want the originals. And I think even for new people, like if these price points, the price points are correct. There we go. I can finally talk. They're solid. Like if that was $30, you go, but like $20, you're like $20. That's not bad.
Yeah, I don't remember if they said the price on this one, but yeah, 20 would be a good price.
Yeah, all of these prices I've never been like, oh, no, like I haven't.
With the exception of the Megazord, which I think is overpriced. Everything else I thought was very well priced.
The Megazord price, I think it's higher than you and I would like to pay, but I don't think it's outlandish considering, like, if you think about Transformers, I think that the combiners that they're coming out with now are grossly overpriced for what you get.
You're not wrong, but they are better. And
I don't know if it's 2.5 times better than that, but that's a different argument for a different day.
And just to be clear, I'm not making an argument of Transformers better than Power Rangers. I'm saying that they have more detail, they have more accessories, they have more paint. They're like objectively better toys in that way.
These are weird.
These are weird, but this goes back to, what did we make in 93? They had a bunch of these little PVC figures, and so here they are again. I wonder if they're going to be. These should be blind boxes. These should be.
I was thinking that
huge with kids right now. There's whole aisles of them, just like a little power egg that you open up. Which one do I get? And maybe one of them they have a gold Ranger one where it's actually gold, and that's 1 in 50, and like that kind of stuff. Which I'm not a fan of myself, but they will do well.
Here's what you do: the actual apparatus is a thick power coin, and all of the power coins are different, and all of the internals are different, and that's a way you do it.
When you crack the power coin, it's destroyed. It's not because you do one where you open it and you reseal it, but there's a lot of packaging now where the fun of it is the packaging. And so if you have a power coin where you like crack the middle and it like crumbles, or like there's a one time like boo, or like something that makes it, people will go nuts. Kids will go nuts for it. Put it that way.
Yeah, if these are not blind bagged, I don't think they're gonna do well at all. To be honest,
no.
That plush is kind of whatever.
They have little the micro metal sets of Power Rangers and everything else, and they're always on clearance.
Yeah, the Jada Toys ones.
Is the odd man out. I don't know what those are. Okay, I guess.
Now these were not on my bingo card, and I absolutely love that they did these.
I got to agree with you there. I did not see this coming. I'm assuming they're the exact. I think they said they're the exact same size as the originals.
Yep.
I could see myself maybe getting one of these.
I could see myself maybe getting 6 or 7 of these.
Well, here's the weird thing for me, because I'm older and I collected these differently. I never owned these Mighty Morphins. I always thought these were nicer than the flip heads, like just like looking at them. But I wasn't really collecting them. And what's weird is I was kind of too, well, it's weird to say I'm too old because I was still collecting toys. It's just being an adult toy collector is a weird thing. Especially
in the 90s, it was a different time.
It was, yeah, because like I kind of was watching Power Rangers, but like I know I'm too old for this. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy the toys, even though I had X-Men figures. Like, what is the difference, But all that's to say, a couple years later, around Zeo and Turbo, I did collect Power Rangers figures. And I had a bunch of Zeo figures in the scale. I remember gold and I had blue, and I may have had like some of the metallic movie Mighty Morphin figure, like maybe Tommy or something. But so I do have some nostalgia for this specific form factor, but not these specific characters, which I know is very weird. But like, I would love a set of Zeo Rangers like this, like brand new, Yeah, this is exciting. This is interesting.
There's 2 things I'm hoping for this. Go for it. One, they do either throwback packaging that looks the same or modernized enough where you could tell these are different, but still in the same vein.
Okay, I agree. I'll tell you something else I want.
Hang on. It's a 2-parter.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Other companies have done this. Hasbro being one, Super 7, 3-0.
I think Bandai.
Please make Ranger Slayer or Draken or the other Green Ranger or other things that have come out since then for this. I'd get them all. I'd get them all.
I'll say this for all of this stuff. If they're gonna stick with Mighty Morphin, incorporate things from other media, from the comics, from a video game, from Once and Always, because kids, if we're aiming it at kids, they're not going to know the difference. It's just another cool ranger, villain, hero, whatever. But the adult collectors, it'll suck us in. And yes, I agree. What I was going to say is, if they're smart, the emblems on their chests, the coin emblems, which were on the toys but never in the show, make these stickers or decals that you can choose to put on. And that way, because I would prefer to not have them on there, but I understand some people would. And this way you get to pick what you want. That would be the way I would do it.
That would be cool. Or variants. That'd be kind of interesting. I don't think they're going to do that, but that would be interesting. I just now realized that those plushes are also a set. I thought it was just Green Ranger.
Oh, you're right. I thought, you could see at least 5 of them. I'm sure Blue is over there.
So what I will say, I definitely have more positive than negative. Shout out Pixel Dan. Please go watch the video and listen to what they have to say. Everything we've seen is all of the original 6 Rangers. There's not Wave 1 has green and blue and yellow.
That is a positive. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, none of that. I get why they do it. I think it's outdated now. I think you shouldn't do it anymore, toy companies.
I also wonder if they sort of, because if you think of older stuff like Star Wars, they would be like, here's all the main characters right away. And then Wave 2 might be some secondary characters that they didn't get to. I feel like with Lightning Collection and the Legacy line, because the toy ones, the Bandai and the Hasbro, the toys that were for the current season, they'd be like, here's the team. The adult collectible ones, I feel like they were all taking a cue from Marvel Legends. And that's a mistake, because if you get 1 or 2 of the X-Men, arguably, I want to build... I personally, I want to build X Factor, a specific version of X Factor. And it's been taking forever to do that. And that could be a little frustrating. But the X-Men have 100,000 members. And even Wolverine has 100,000 versions. So it's not like you could put out 5 X-Men. Oh, well, there's the X-Men. But you can do that with Power Rangers. You absolutely can. And I think that was there was some weird disconnect there that hopefully they've gotten over. All that being said, though, they did at some point say something about a collector's line. And none of that is collector's line to me.
Yeah, I think, and again, it could be a development thing. It could be a higher up thing. I think we should have seen, similar to Lightning Collection. I think you were at your booth, unfortunately, but I got to see the presentation of hey, Hasbro's taking over. Here's the first White Ranger figure. Here's the whole story. That room was electric. It was so hyped. We saw everything. The figure looked good. Right after that, they revealed it in the case, and it looked awesome.
I remember seeing it in the case. It was really cool.
And it'll let you know what we're in for.
Yeah.
And this, I wanted just a nugget of that, because, again, I think that presentation was more positive than negative, even though the last 2 times I've been pretty negative about it.
I just because I am being more negative than you, and I'll own that. But I do feel more positive about it now than I did a week ago.
Same.
I still have misgivings, but yeah, go ahead.
I think what you and I and many others are holding out for is I need to see that to know whether I'm in with you or not. These, you and I are biased because we're parents. That's one thing. Maybe we get these for ourselves. Some things maybe we don't. But we'll always have that.
There's the stuff that you get that's sort of for the kid and you.
Exactly. That is where for us, it's that gray area for everything we just talked about. But the collector stuff, that is the true make or break. And that's where I think we needed a show-stopping figure, even if it's Mighty Morphin. You show Red Ranger, Green Ranger, Pink Ranger, whatever, and it looks awesome, and it blows away our expectations, and it's kind of like Hasbro, but kind of like Super 7, but different, but it has this articulation they, got inspired by Bandai, whatever. We needed to see that, and we didn't, so now we're I don't know if I'm going to go in on this yet, because I don't know how I feel about it.
And I'll tell you something else. If they would have done that with, forgetting about seasons that I or you specifically personally want, if they had done it with Super Mega Force, let's say, which is also Gokaiger, other than the Bandai figures, I'm not talking about Japanese and import stuff, we haven't gotten those Power Ranger figures at all. No one has. That would be exciting. Or obviously it's a favorite of mine, but Jungle Fury, just thinking of ones, or Wild Force we got? Just any season that like hasn't had an adult collectible in America ever.
Ninja Storm we haven't had in a while.
Yeah, anything like that, and just be like, this is going to be part of our All Stars line or whatever the thing is, and just even if they were just cardboard cutouts of those characters, like oh, and then after this wave, we're going to be delving into the legacy characters,
Korag, like something.
Would you like a figure of Korag?
I would make some deals.
All right, so oh my gosh, we've been going for 40 minutes.
I know. Okay,
we're going to end, but really quickly, I want to talk about one other thing, which I don't know if you saw or not. Put it up here. This is off of Reddit, but originally people were talking about the Montyverse. I guess I haven't heard of them. Monty, I guess from Ninja Steel.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be rude. I hadn't heard of them before this, but everybody that I've seen talking about this is referring back to the Montyverse. So assuming the Montyverse got their information correct, otherwise we're all wrong. Playmates in association with Hasbro is using AI to digitally enhance season 1 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to be released on YouTube and Netflix, which I guess means it's free for YouTube. And now even more phenomenal with the power of AI. Season 1 will start dropping in July, which is not too far off, with more to follow. The goal of Reignition is to build a new generation of PR fans, and this is another step towards that. Boo. Everything bad is how I feel about that. Not one good thing to say about that. You and I both feel strongly, you a little bit more than me, about the use of AI for stuff. I'm anti-AI for most things. I think especially for this, there's two thoughts I have. Yes.
One, I like you guys, pushing the media of Mighty Morphin to try to get people. That part I'm cool with. Using AI, I think you should pay people to be good at their job and not rely on AI.
Let's say this. Let's assume AI is moral, doesn't hurt the environment, and isn't putting people out of work. I'm not saying that's true, but for the sake of this argument, let's take all of that out of it. Please continue.
I am nervous that this is going to be like a 2010 Mighty Morphin, where they're like, here's the stuff that the youths want.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be what anybody wants.
That is quite possible. I think it's even worse than that, because I haven't followed this a lot, but there's been a lot of AI upscaling where they're not really trying to change anything, but just try to sharpen it, because it is old grainy 90s video. And there's been several examples of it going badly and still being released. One specifically was I Love Lucy, an older show, which I wasn't particularly into, but it was just some video I was watching where people were talking about like things that were being brought back, and they were saying like, yeah, I was excited for this, but like in the background there's like background actors which are like a little bit fuzzy because it's old film, and instead of being fuzzy or being cleaned up, it's sort of this weird uncanny like because it's just some algorithm not cleaning up what's there but like inventing something. So like at a glance it looks better, but the more you watch, you're like, this is weird and bad. And like,
yeah.
And knowing the kind of budget companies typically throw at Power Rangers, and especially that this is like a sub-license of a sub-license, like it's just getting more and more diluted. People want to give less money to it. They're not going to hire the best AI cleanup team in the world. They're going to get some quick program with one guy that can run it through for as cheap as possible. And I think it's going to kind of sharpen it up, but look weird and bad. Now, if I'm wrong and it just cleans it up and looks good, okay. I mean, I guess that's nice for older fans, or if you want to show it to your kid, but make a new show. Make a new show with the Mighty Morphin suits. That's fine. Make a new show where you clean up the film, because most of the Zoo Ranger footage was film, which is easier to clean up as I understand it. And reshoot all the civilian stuff with the new young actors in a modern setting. That's not my preference, but do that. Make a cartoon. Anything. Why are we making Mighty Morphin the new thing again? They did this 15 years ago and it sucked. Oh, I'm getting mad talking about this. Okay. I'm going to.
This is definitely that question that you posed earlier of, would you rather have nothing or would you rather have this? You would rather have nothing. I am indifferent.
But it's not even nothing, because you can watch the original episodes on Netflix and or YouTube. We don't need this new version.
I guess what I'll say is, the AI upscaling aside, it's them promoting these episodes and re-pushing them. That's what I'm going to use as my designator. I'm mostly indifferent on it.
That's the only thing good I could say, but it's like, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Like, well, good. You should be promoting it if you want to sell these toys, but this is not the way.
Yeah, it's weird, like that we're like, well, use the old stuff as a commercial for these new toys, and you're like, okay, then what?
I will say this. Going back to He-Man, because that's the one that seems to have the most correlation right now with the toys. He-Man has the old figures from like the 80s redone.
Yep.
And they didn't go and find the old 80s cartoon and dust it off and say, watch this. They have Revelations, which has met with mixed results.
Yep.
But it is a current show, and they have figures of that current show mixed with legacy figures, mixed with figures that never existed. They're just like cool monsters and stuff. And they did make a new kids He-Man show. It didn't do well, but they did it. And so again, I feel like what they're doing with He-Man, and that's Mattel, isn't great. And it isn't super succeeding. They're kind of limping along year after year. And I'm a He-Man fan. I'm not saying this to be mean.
Yeah.
And it's just weird to me that Playmates said, hey, look what they're doing. Let's do that. It's barely working for them. And He-Man hasn't been squeezed to death the way Power Rangers has.
But the thing that you're forgetting is in everything you just said, there were 2 new shows for the property that were released.
That was my point, is that there is no new show for this. Yeah, at the very least, they made 2 new shows. One did better than the other. Neither did it great, but there was something. There was something. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, kind of like we said, if this is a springboard of doing, fan servicey stuff where it's like, look at these old vintage styles, but now it's in turbo or whatever, like that, awesome. Yeah. Please use this to springboard to that. There's so much unknown, and I've been hurt before that, like, we can't be excited until we see why we need to be excited. The hurry up and wait and see, we've had that way too many times, and we just need definitive stuff. And what I will say, ending on a positive, is all that role play stuff is a home run, in my opinion, in terms of what we are seeing now versus what we've seen for current or old seasons in the past.
Yes. Well, that is also kind of depressing that despite all the negativity, this rollout is robust. They're hitting different price points. They're just hitting different form factors. They've got the role play. They got the Megazord. They've got all the stuff that should be with each season, which we haven't necessarily gotten, especially with like, Cosmic Fury and stuff. So, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. I almost like, again, I would like to have seen them maybe throw some Cosmic Fury stuff in there too, kind of late, but still, like that's the most recent season. But kids that don't know much about Power Rangers, only have a passing idea of what they are, the role play stuff will do the best. I agree.
Yeah.
And adults that maybe aren't collectors the way we are, that somehow haven't picked up any Power Ranger stuff in the last 30 years, even though it's been on the shelves, might pick up a Morpher. They might pick up a Dagger or something like that. But
I think some of it'll do well. It's Mighty Morphin sells. It's what reason they keep doing it. That now what is what I'm waiting on.
Prove me wrong, Playmates. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. But until that time, I have been the big dog.
And I have been Gazbot.
And to the power reignited. See y'all later.
And credits.
So we didn't talk about this because we ran really late.
Oh, yeah.
What was your NECA TMNT impressions?
I love what NECA is doing with TMNT. I love the weird directions they're taking it and all the paths they're going down. A lot of what they revealed is stuff that I didn't personally feel the need to get. I think there was like a Last Ronin figure or 2 I wanted.
Yeah.
I love the weird. They're doing the Stan Sakai turtles.
Yeah, those are cool, and I'm tempted.
I'm tempted, but again, when I think of all the versions of the turtles, like, is that one I have to own?
Yeah.
Space, money, it's all a factor. I'm trying to think what like the big one I definitely wanted was
the What Ifs. What do you think of those?
What were the What Ifs? Did I miss
those? The What If 1990s movie version of Bebop and Rocksteady.
Oh, I don't know. Not into those. I know, and that's actually weirdly controversial, I guess. I don't think they look bad. I think that, like, I've heard people like, they look ugly, and I've heard other people saying like that looks like if Jim Henson Puppets made them, and I agree that looks like it could have existed. I think it's a cool idea. I have Toka and Razor, and that was Bebop and Rocksteady to me. Like that was the movie versions we got, and that's fine. Is there one or more that you were specifically interested in?
That weird like Krang I thought was kind of cool.
Oh, the like Metaluna mutant one from the Universal Monsters line. That I did think that was cool too, but I almost wouldn't put that with my turtles. I'd put that like somewhere else. That's one if I saw on sale, I might get it just to put somewhere else.
Yeah, and then I think what was the other thing? Yeah, Last Orange stuff was cool.
They had the set of turtles from the Gangs of New York or whatever that storyline was, where they're all.
I don't care.
I mean, it's cool. That again to me is either someone that wants every version of the turtles that happen to be their favorite story, or somehow they haven't got a set of the 4 turtles yet and they just need one.
Which I heard there are a lot of people because the release of that was apparently funky, but yeah, I am glad there's some stuff that's coming out, but it wasn't like, oh my, like there have been times in the past where you and I are like, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. Although the 2010 turtles, is that what it was? The
2012s.
2012s, I'm all in. I mean,
yeah, those look great. I forgot about those.
I want Krang, I want Shredder. Every one they showed, I'm getting.
And the Super 7, the 4 new ones for that they were announced as well for the 03s.
I'm definitely not getting those, and I plan on selling the 4 turtles when they get here. Probably. Like
good to 75%
know. Sure.
But
yeah. Anyway, 50 minutes later. Bye everybody.